Well, hello, I'm Janet Marana, the Executive Director of Priests for Life. Welcome to Just Ask Janet. Well, right now I'd like you to gather the children around because we're going to have today a special treat. Because we're very blessed here at Priests for Life because one of our executives, Anthony DeStefano, has written so many children's books, like over a dozen. They're great children's books. They have beautiful illustrations. And here at our online store at prolifeproducts.org, we're running a great special because you must wonder, why am I holding a basket? It's because right about now, we started Lent, but I know the mommies and the daddies are figuring out about Easter presents for the kiddies and filling up those baskets. So we're going to show you those 4 beautiful children's books that we're running a great deal on. Do you realize you're going to get all 4 of these children's books that we have for just a donation of $35, and they're beautiful books. Well, the first book, I'll take out of my little basket. I'm going to move my basket out of the way here. The first one is called The Seed Who Was Afraid to Be Planted. And, this book, it helps encourage young people. Maybe they got to face something that they're afraid of. A lot of children, they get fearful if they have to go to the dentist, or they get fearful going to the doctor, or they're fearful maybe going to school. And even after they've been going to school for months and months and months, I mean, we're in the spring session now. We should be used to going to school. Some children still suddenly, because I was a teacher and I know this, they just get a funny feeling like, oh, I don't want to go to school today. And you ask them why. I don't know. I'm afraid. Afraid of what? You've been doing this for 5-6 months. Oh, I don't know. So in this book, and we're going to read the story right now, it's adorable story about a little seed that he preferred to stay in the seed packet, in the farmer's drawer, rather than be put down into the dark dirt. So let's enjoy right now The Seed That Was Afraid to Be Planted.
Hi kids, I'm Anthony DeStefano, and this is a seed. The reason why I'm showing it to you is because it looks a little like the seed in a book I wrote that I'd like to read to you right now. It's called The Seed Who Was Afraid to Be Planted, and it's all about a tiny little seed who's very afraid of being planted in the ground. Have you ever been afraid of anything? Ever been scared or upset? If you have, then stay with me for a few minutes while I read you this story. And after I finish, I'll be back to say a few words to you adults who are watching too, because this book isn't just for kids. The Seed Who Was Afraid to Be Planted by Anthony DeStefano. There once was a seed who lived in a drawer in a room of a mansion by a beautiful shore. The drawer was filled up with seeds of all kinds for bushes and trees and flowering vines. The seed was quite happy and had lots to do. The drawer was quite pretty and painted bright blue. Cozy and warm, the seed felt secure. The drawer was a playground, of this he was sure. But all was not well. The seed was afraid that he would be taken and planted one day. The mansion, you see, was owned by a man whose hobby was gardening and tending his land. The man sometimes took a seed from the drawer, and no one would see that seed anymore. The seed was so scared there might come a day the man would reach down and take him away. The thought was just awful and hard to believe. He couldn't imagine that he'd have to leave. Then one dark day, the drawer opened wide. The seed saw a hand reach down from outside. He tried to escape. He begged and he cried, but there was no place to run or to hide. The hand clasped about him. The seed shook with fear. He yelled to the man, "Don't take me from here." Outside in the garden, the seed looked around. He saw to his horror a hole in the ground. A hole in the ground? Oh no, it can't be. I want to go back to my drawer, can't you see? I'm scared to be planted. I want to be free. I'm in so much pain and such agony. The man was just silent. He made not a sound. He just smiled softly and put the seed down. The sky was deep purple. The seed said a prayer. The man stood above him and buried him there. He started to moan. He started to groan. He felt so abandoned, forsaken, alone. Tired and frightened, he started to weep, but soon closed his eyes and fell fast asleep. All covered with dirt, he dreamed he would die. But then all at once, in the blink of an eye, something took place there in that hole to the seed's weary body and terrified soul. He started to change. He started to glow. The little seed stretched out and started to grow. What can be happening? The little seed cried. What is this feeling I have deep inside? His body expanded. He swelled and he grew. He rose in the dirt till his head wiggled through. Once through the soil, he saw a great light. The sun in the sky was dazzlingly bright. Slowly but surely, the seed was aware of rising and climbing up into the air. At last the seed realized, at last he could see, he was really and truly becoming a tree. Higher and higher the little tree went. Into the heavens he made his ascent. Suddenly branches sprang from his side. Hundreds and hundreds of leaves multiplied. The branches grew nuts and fruits that hung down. They swayed in the breeze and covered the ground. Then filling the air with fragrant perfumes, the tree sprouted flowers and blossoms and blooms. Then birds began building nests for their young, joyfully flapping their wings as they sung. In the tree's branches, the baby birds napped, while woodpeckers pecked at his bark full of sap. Cardinals and blue jays flew from above. They played with the eagles and owls and doves. Squirrels and rabbits began to appear. Beautiful butterflies came flying near. The tree was amazed. He looked at the scene. The sky was so blue, the garden so green. Mountains and vineyards and cities he saw. Millions of mansions looked over the shore. The tree was so thankful and heavy with fruit, he bowed to the man in humble salute. The man stood below, a smile on his face. His children were running all over the place. They climbed up the tree. They swung from his vines. They seemed to be having the happiest time. The garden was sunlit. The tree was aware of laughter and music and life everywhere. Life in the garden, life on the shore, so much more life than he had in the drawer. A breeze stirred his leaves, a wind howled through. The tree understood that all things were new. The tree understood that he had been freed. He barely remembered when he was a seed. He barely remembered his life in the drawer. His fears disappeared and returned nevermore. Did you like that? You know, kids, the meaning of this story is very simple. Just like the seed who was afraid to be planted, sometimes we can feel scared and lonely and abandoned. When something new and different happens in our lives, like the first day of school or having to go to the dentist's office, or something very serious like the death of a pet or even someone in our family, it can be so frightening. But no matter what happens, you have to remember that God is like the gardener in this story. He loves us and cares for us very much. And if you trust God completely, He'll help you to overcome your fear and grow into the best kind of person you can be. And that's true for us adults too. At one time or another, all of us feel scared. All of us grieve over losses. But no matter how bad things get, we can never forget that God is with us and that He always wants us to grow and be more fruitful. The end of the human story is not death, but life, abundant life. I'm Anthony DeStefano, and I'll see you again next time.
Wasn't that a beautiful story? And again, the seed that was afraid to be planted, you can order it as part of our great Easter bundle of children's books at prolifeproducts.org. And like you saw in those pictures, the illustrations in this book are just beautiful, aren't they? Look how colorful. And I know your children will enjoy it. And it gives a good lesson too, as Anthony said. Well, also today we're going to read another one of Mr. DeStefano's books. And this one is The Sheep That No One Could Find. And of course, we all know that parallels with the story of Jesus, the Good Shepherd, right? The Good Shepherd leaves the 99 sheep right there in the pasture and goes out for that one lost sheep. And this story is going to tell us about this one little rascal. This little sheep was away from the flock and what they had to do to find this little sheep. So let's enjoy now Anthony DeStefano reading The Sheep That Nobody Could Find.
Hi kids, I'm Anthony DeStefano, and this is a friend of mine, a little stuffed sheep. And the reason I'm holding him is because today I'd like to read you a children's book I wrote called The Sheep That No One Could Find. And it's about something that all kids need to know about, being sorry when you do something wrong. It's based on the famous parable of the lost sheep in chapter 15 of the Gospel of Luke. And after I finish reading it, I'll have a brief word to say to you adults who are watching too, because this subject isn't just for kids, right? Right. The sheep that no one could find. There was once a good shepherd who tended his sheep in a field by a mountain, high, green, and steep. The sheep would go grazing right down to the sea. They always were happy and always were free. As long as they followed the shepherd they knew, nothing could harm them or frighten them too. But one of the sheep decided one day the words of the shepherd were hard to obey. Instead, he decided to do things his way. He even decided to run far away. So he snuck off alone as fast as he could, over a river and into a wood. At last, said the sheep as he stood near a tree, I won't have to follow the shepherd and be like all of the others. I'll really be free. So into the valley the little sheep crossed and wandered all day until he was lost. Lost and confused, he wasn't aware a hungry old wolf had spotted him there. The wolf licked his lips and drooled at the sight. He got an idea and said with delight, I think I'll have lamb chops for dinner tonight. But in order to take the sheep by surprise, the wolf had to use a most clever disguise. He put on a sheep suit, a mask on his head, then waved to the sheep and cheerfully said, How about having some dinner with me? I live over there. Would you like to come see? The sheep, who felt lonely, said in reply, I'd love to have dinner, just you and I. But when they arrived at the hungry wolf's lair, there wasn't a trace of food anywhere. The wolf grinned and said, There is no mistake. You see, silly sheep, I'm just a big fake. Now come over here. Don't try to go back. You are my dinner, my tasty sheep snack. The little sheep screamed and dived underneath the wolf's snapping jaws and razor-sharp teeth. He raced through the forest, past buzzards and bees. The wolf chased behind, but got lost in the trees. Up into the mountain, the frightened sheep flew. He had no idea just what he would do. But all of a sudden, he came to a stop the moment he got to the high mountain top. For blocking his path, the little sheep saw a huge, angry lion who started to roar. The lion was mean and prideful and bad. He prowled through the country and always was mad. In order to show off his strength and his might, he tried to devour all the sheep in his sight. With fury he scowled, "How dare you come here? This is my mountain, isn't that clear?" Then making a lunge with his powerful paws, he sliced at the air with his long deadly claws. The sheep backed away on the mountain's flat top, but couldn't go further or down he would drop. So he leapt on the lion and slid down his tail. He landed behind him, then ran down the trail. Far off in the distance, he saw a tall tree. "Finally," he said, "a safe place for me." He climbed up the tree, and taking a chance, he crawled to the end of a thin leafy branch. "At last," breathed the sheep, "I'll take a short rest, and just like a bird, I'll hide in a nest." But the sheep felt so sad. "I want to go home. I'm tired of being so scared and alone. I miss the Good Shepherd. I'd much rather be following him than stuck up this tree." But just at that moment, from out of nowhere, a slithering snake hung down in the air. The snake was a liar, an evil one too. The words that he spoke were always untrue. He said to the sheep, "Your shepherd is cruel. He'll never forgive you. Stop being a fool." His tongue darted out. He started to hiss. "Come here, little lamb. Let me give you a kiss." "Come here," he repeated. "Come here, pretty please. I'll wrap all around you and give you a squeeze." The sheep wiggled out. He barely got free. He jumped to the ground and started to flee. The snake was behind, the little sheep knew. The wolf and the lion were chasing him too. But when he got tired and wanted to quit, he suddenly fell in a dark, open pit. The sheep couldn't see the pit was so black. Above him, the beasts were set to attack. "Oh, what can I do?" the little sheep sighed. "I'm trapped and alone and just want to cry. I've been so confused, so wrong and so blind. My shepherd was caring and loving and kind. I should never have left. It was all a mistake. I'm tired of wolves and of lions and snakes." But then the sheep heard a wonderful sound. It came from above, from up on the ground. The shepherd was back. The shepherd was here. The shepherd was calling his name loud and clear. He had left all his flock for one sheep who was lost, to rescue and save him no matter the cost. He trounced the huge lion. He crushed the sly snake. He flung the old wolf by his tail in a lake. Then he pulled the sheep out from down in the pit, and on his strong shoulders he made the sheep sit. He carried him back with a smile that was bright to the field by the mountain. What a beautiful sight! The sheep were all glad to see their small friend. He promised to never leave them again. To the shepherd he said, "I'm sorry I strayed. Forgive me for all the mistakes that I made." "All is forgiven," the shepherd replied, and the sheep could detect tears of joy in his eyes. "My heart is so happy. My love is so deep. Welcome back to your family. Welcome home, my lost sheep." Did you like that? I hope so. You know, kids, the meaning of this story is very simple. Just like the sheep that no one could find, sometimes we do things that are wrong. Sometimes we stray from the right path. Sometimes we don't listen to our parents or our teachers. Isn't that right? And when that happens, life isn't always so fun. What you have to understand is that when your parents or your teachers give you rules, it's only because they love you and they want what's best for you. They want you to be safe. And that's true for us adults too. All of us have a Father in heaven. His name is God. And God gives all of us rules that we have to follow. Rules like the 10 Commandments. It's not that he wants to be hard on us. It's that he loves us and he wants us to be safe. He knows that when we stop following him, we usually end up getting into trouble. Listen, all of us stray from the Good Shepherd once in a while. And when we do, when we give in to our own pride and anger and sinfulness, we make a pretty big mess of things. The good news is that God is always ready to forgive us if we're sorry. The Good Shepherd is always ready to trounce our enemies and welcome us back home with open arms if we want. Remember, God's name is mercy. So make use of that beautiful sacrament of reconciliation that we have in the church. Make use of it as often as you need it. I'm Anthony DeStefano, and I'll see you next time.
I hope you enjoyed that story of our little sheep, okay, that we couldn't find. And notice what Anthony DeStefano was telling us. You know, we're here in the middle of Lent, and if you order this book right now, this is a kind of a good book to read, maybe even before Easter to the children and for the adults too, that we make a good confession, you know, go to reconciliation before we get to Easter. I mean, that's what we're supposed to be doing, you know, during this time of Lent. So this is a great story, as you saw, reminding us about the Good Shepherd, and that's Jesus, always waiting for us, always waiting to forgive, always welcoming us back home to the church. So again, this book, along with, we already heard on this program, the Seed book, which I'll hold up again. And then there's two other books, which I'm actually going to read for you. Anthony will read for you on our next episode, which will be tomorrow. And you can obtain all four of these books at a special price, a donation to Priests for Life to the ministry of $35. So go now to prolifeproducts.org and check out these beautiful, beautiful children's books that have good moral lessons inside of them. Well, thank you for joining me on Just Ask Janet. Until next time, Janet Marana, Executive Director of Priests for Life. God bless.
I will be silent no more.